here. That is the cafeteria. We have restrooms there. We also have this area here is the personal courage wing, personal courage for World War I and World War II. We're going to exit these doors. Go across the sky level street.
Over here?
This building.
I did. Huh? Yeah, because there's one I see what's like. No, it worked. It rang, but we didn't. Well, it looks like, well, it'll work, just be a little stuck. Anyway, we're now just waiting, so let's just and I'm gonna mute you so there aren't any problems. I'm going to mute you so there aren't any issues.
Okay, now you are on the west campus of the Museum of Flight, highlighted by Simone Space Gallery. We'll go in this door and go out the other side into the Aviation Pavilion. Follow me, please. Video. This side. This is the space gallery, and the highlight is, of course, the full function shuttle simulator. Okay, here's the deal. This is not part of commercial aviation, but I would feel badly just walking by and not explaining what it is.
Yep.
This is an actual full-function space shuttle simulator. This was given to us by NASA after the space shuttle program ended. And the beauty of it is when you have your own time, you can actually go in to the cargo bay and you'd be standing where astronauts had stood. Okay? So that is the beauty of this. The museum initially wanted to have an actual space shuttle, but that didn't happen. And fortunately for us, we got a better deal, because if you had the full space shuttle, an actual one, you couldn't go inside. But here you get to go into the cargo bay where actual astronauts train. All right? So if you have any other questions about it, see me after your tour. Let's go this way. I hope.
You never did go there.
All right, we're going to stop here and get you oriented on the Aviation Pavilion. All right? To show you that I can read, you are here. All right? And this bullet here behind me is the Concorde. Now, you may not want to try to get in it right now because it's going to be kind of tight and all some good stuff, but sometime during your stay, take a look at the Concorde itself. We're going to be talking about this one, number 3, which is Boeing 707 Air Force One configured aircraft. We will go on number 15, the jumbo jet, and we'll see what happens over in this one, 787 Dreamliner. Okay? But for now, suffice it to say, we're going to talk about the outside of the Concorde. I would take you on, but I wouldn't be able to talk to you about it in total. The main thing to understand is this was a commercial supersonic transport. And back in the day when it was flying, it really couldn't fly over land because of the sonic boom. Current time, today, people are talking about a resurgence of supersonic commercial flight. And engineering technology has come up a way to alleviate the sonic boom so that the future supersonic transport can fly over land. I'll believe it when I see it or not hear it. All right? And anyhow, this thing in its heyday, it has a speed of Mach 2. You go up to about 60,000 feet. And that's 20,000 feet more in altitude where it'd be flying than the typical commercial airliner. Now, the reason why it does not have large passenger windows is because of the speed and also the altitude. They had to do some great engineering, well beyond my understanding. However, they calculated if they had a puncture in the fuselage, losing air pressure, air, things like that, by having smaller windows plus augmented oxygen systems that push air directly into the cabin, not so much those drop-down masks. By having the smaller windows, it would give the passengers time to actually then put on those drop-down masks. Now, those are some of the hazards of supersonic flight back in the day. However, when you do get a chance to go on it outside the tour, you'll see that it's kind of cramped. You'll also see that you were paying about $1,000 a seat, just to fly on that thing. And based on what you have today, you probably wouldn't want to fly that way. All right? So, any questions on the Concorde right now? All right, let's move on to the 707 Air Force One. Before I do that, let's talk about the evolution of commercial aircraft. And this aircraft here, United Airlines City of Renton, is Boeing's 247 Delta. This aircraft was revolutionary. First flew in 1933, and in 1934, because of its advanced design, it was awarded the Collier Trophy for Aeronautical Excellence in Design. All right, so what was so special? Well, the thing that's so special is you're going to have to wait till we get across to the Great Gallery, because there you had biplanes, open cockpits, and tri-motors. But this was the first metal plane produced by Boeing to carry 10 passengers. And let's see, it has, what do you call it, anti-ice capability, de-icing. This black area here in the actual aircraft, that would be a de-icing boot. And the way that de-icing boots worked back then, you get ice forming on the leading edge of the wing, which is going to disrupt the airflow, which is going to cause the aircraft to eventually fall out of the sky. So, what the pilots were able to do with the de-icing boot, they would be able to pump air into that de-icing boot and cause the ice to fall off before it formed too much. All right, makes sense. They also had a bunch of other advanced avionics to help with navigation, and like I said, it had what do you call it? It had two pilots, one stewardess, and believe it or not, they could carry 10 passengers. However, you would expect this aircraft to revolutionize aviation. It didn't. Why? Because at the time, in the early or late 20s and early 30s, Boeing Air Transport Company, they made planes, and they also owned United Airlines. And when United was told that they're going to fly this aircraft, Boeing only made the planes for United. And that was short-sighted. Why? Because the other airlines, once they saw the 247D, said, we want something like it. And Boeing said, oh no, I can't make any more because I'm at capacity filling out my fleet. And so what happened? The Douglas Commercial Aircraft Company got in the game. They had a prototype, the DC-1. Then they had the DC-2, which is over here, if you'll follow me. Talking about this aircraft here, and this is the Douglas DC-2. Now, believe it or not, this aircraft, the DC-2, became more popular for the airlines, and the Douglas Commercial Manufacturing Company was more, how should I say, accommodating to multiple airlines' orders. So what happened? It flooded the zone and caused the Boeing 247D to be irrelevant. Now, what they got with the DC-2 is all metal fuselage, things like that, similar type setup for avionics, navigation aids, things like that, but they also got the capability of carrying 14 passengers, 14 paying passengers. So, think about it. What would an airline want? 14 paying passengers or 10 paying passengers? Right. That is one of the contributing factors why the Boeing 247 Delta faded into history. Now, trust me, the DC-2 was successful. And it eventually led to the famous DC-3, and we have an example of that in the Great Gallery, and I'll show you the improvements. It will be slightly larger. But this is the DC-2 that started the Douglas Commercial Aircraft Company on its way to greatness. All right? Now, let's talk about the 707. We're going from beginning to middle, 707. This is an Air Force One configured Boeing 707, and needless to say, it has the military type stuff on it to protect the President of the United States. However, it is a single narrow aisled aircraft, and this one is tricked out for executive type travel. It has conference room, radios, things like that. But if you could imagine, it would probably have single aisle and seats across, about 2 on each side, maybe 2 or 5. All right, but the thing is, it was advanced at its time, gave great deal of, how should I say, prestige to any heads of state that would fly on such an aircraft. Now, the beauty of this aircraft to me, in November 1963, when President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, this aircraft was on the tarmac, but it wasn't Air Force One. Why? Because this is a B model. Kennedy had a C model, the latest edition. So what do? You always get the head cheese, the newest and nicest stuff, right? And the C model took Kennedy to Dallas. However, this aircraft was Air Force Two, which carried Vice President Johnson to Dallas that day. You don't put the two leaders of the country on the same plane. All right? Now, I hate to say it this way, but I'm from the Army. Johnson got the ultimate upgrade that day, because if you remember the famous photo of him being sworn in, it was not on this aircraft. It was on the newer model after Kennedy was pronounced dead. And that famous photo has, Jacqueline Kennedy to Johnson's right side, Lady Bird Johnson on his left, holding the Bible, and Johnson in the center there, raising his hand to be sworn in on the newer aircraft. But the significance of this aircraft to me, I was in the 4th or 5th grade in the Boston Public Elementary School, and we got this shocking news on the overhead. President Kennedy has been killed. Go home. So after all these years, I'm reunited with a very pivotal time in my life with this aircraft. So, this aircraft wasn't only used as Air Force Two, it also carried Henry Kissinger, Richard Nixon, places, things like that. Made several trips to the famous China summits and things like that. But this is one of the first Air Force Ones. Chairman Choi. Show in line. Yeah, show in line. All right. So anyhow, once you get a chance, you can come back and take a look on the inside there. Any questions to this point? All right, let's move on to the heavy one. Aviation Pavilion, please note the size of the different aircraft. It's kind of hard to justify the Boeing field for the Airbus. Okay, before we go inside, please gather around the nose and look up, because needless to say, you're looking up pretty high. Imagine trying to land a plane from that height. Because you look at the earlier planes and they were much lower, right? But anyhow, what we've got here is the first 747 City of Everett. On the side above the red belt line, you have the airlines that actually have flown that airframe, right? And every now and then you see going into SeaTac 747s, passenger, and they're still being flown mainly as cargo, but some Japanese airlines fly 747 this day on passenger travel. All right, so that is the number of the aircraft, Romeo Alpha 001. All right, so you go up these stairs,
Let's go upstairs. Wow, we're gonna look at this big plane now. Wow.
as you're coming up, please take a look at the outside, the wheels, the landing lights, engines, because you'll probably never get that close enough.
Now you can touch the plane.
If you would, move up towards the front just to get in here.
That's how the plane looks like when there's no seats. Right? Look at the picture. These are different hostesses.
Move towards the front, please. Get as many in the front as possible before we start going towards the back.
This is the upper part of the airplane. That's how it looks like. See? Oh, those are the padding.
Try to go in towards the front first.
Yeah.
Find room towards the front.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, we're gonna fly now.
Towards the front. Okay. Where you are at, you are on the first Boeing 747 jumbo jet. And hopefully, after we get off, you'll have a better appreciation for its size. But the reason why I like bringing people on board this type aircraft is because this is old technology. But at the time when it was starting in the late 60s, hey, this is new technology. But they still had old type systems. You do have cables up there that would control the surfaces. You see those cables there? All that stuff is connected to, what do you call it, the yoke up in the top there. Now, unfortunately, we cannot go up on the flight deck. We cannot go to the upper lounge. But from your perspective here, you can see you climb the stairs there to heaven or whatever, where they had an upstairs lounge, and depending on the, what do you call it, air, commercial air carrier, they would have these things decked out very snazzy. Some people had cocktail lounges in the area that you're sitting in right now, and then they had the upper crust lounge up top. All right, so that's what's happening here in the 747. If you're interested, you can look down into the bottom of the plane, avionics compartment here. However, we're going to keep walking towards the back. And as you go through the back, please take a look at the scientific test equipment Boeing left inside this aircraft. And we're going to stop at an area that has something like beer cakes, and we'll talk about it. We weren't partying up here. But, you know, who knows? But anyhow, we're going to proceed to the back now if we don't have any questions about this area. And we will go back, take a look at what you can see with the wall panel off.
And all the actual.
If any of you have flown on a 747, you probably didn't realize how spacious the front of the truck is. You would probably have 3 seats on this side, 4 seats on the other. The aircraft in different configurations, they could hold 330 passengers in certain classes, or up to 550 in certain configurations. What you see here is different test equipment, test stations, and all the engineers in flight on this aircraft. Yes, it's a frustrating day for that engineer. Okay, this are the beer kegs I was talking about. And they're not beer kegs, but they do hold liquid. And the reason why these barrels are here is because they were critical to the center of gravity testing for different configurations of the aircraft in test, like mode. Now, these barrels are connected several ways. You got a black tube here, pumping stuff. You also have this bronze-colored tubing that would be used to transfer the fluid to different barrels at different locations, positions in that rack of barrels. And by doing that, the engineers were able to change the center of gravity of this aircraft in flight and come up with test results that would benefit the public safely. We're going to go down to the back. And as we go down to the back, you can take a look on either side and see different awards, you know, things like that. How many people have ever seen a rear window in an aircraft? Now's your chance. All right? And I will try to explain it to you. Okay, before you get off, it's well worth understanding why this rear window is here. This aircraft was a test aircraft, and Boeing and the military tested the thought of this aircraft being used as an air-to-air refuel tanker in flight. So that is why this window is left here, and on the inside of this window there's an instrument console that the boom operator would pass what they call the gas. All right. He also had this red couch-like. He would have his belly down facing the window, and he has controls here that would, there was an external boom that would connect this aircraft to the receiver aircraft. And if you look on this video monitor to your left, you will see the aircraft you're standing on hooked up with the boom to a B-52 bomber and also an SR-71 during the actual testing phase. Now, sorry to burst your bubble, but guess what, folks? The external boom is no longer with this aircraft. They took it off after this test was over with, but they did leave the window and the instrument console there. So, now, people have heard about black boxes and stuff like that in aircraft. Well, if you come over here, this is what they look like. One's black, you got an orange one there, and you can come down and take a look at them back up there. Let me get out of your way.
This is the black box of
Well, there's a black box. All that stuff up there has to do with data recording in flight. But the orange one up there is the cockpit voice recorder, and it is equated to another black box.
Everything is analog.
Well, you have to understand, this is before they had fly-by-wire and stuff like that.
Those are cable, like you said, cable.
All right. Now we're going to leave the aircraft if you don't have any other questions up here. And we'll leave through this door, and as you're walking down, take a look at what else is around at a different altitude than on the ground level. I'll meet you at the bottom of the stairs, please. Okay, if you would, look this way, please. And direct your attention to massive white This is the first 737 journey. All right? And it's smaller than the ones that you see flying today. But this jet was bouncing around in '64. And now you're in the 737 MAX generation. In between, you had the original, you had the classics, and then you had the next gen, and then you went to the MAX editions. Right? So it's been in production until this time, but with great amount of engineering and evolution. Some of the things That was stick and rudder, you know, wire and cable pulleys, control surfaces, and things like that. Nowadays, they're using fly-by-wire to control the control surfaces. Also, the, what do you call it? Instrument panel is all glass in the newer editions. This one was used by NASA, and it had a second cockpit behind the actual cockpit. And that second cockpit NASA used to develop the glass cockpits that we have today. All right, so that is the significance of our 737. Let us go to the green line. Please note the size. Go ahead straight up. Squeeze in as much as possible there. No, you're fine.
Oh, this already has seats. This one already had seats.
Yeah.
That'd be an idea. I know. I just saw. I watched it while I was going up the stairs.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, try to squeeze in just for a moment. I just want to let you know where you're at and what's so special about this aircraft.
It's twin jet. The
That,
size is size, and it's composite.
yes. Need to emphasize the composite structure. Okay, you are now standing on Boeing's number 3 produced 787 Dreamliner. This aircraft was put together using mostly composite materials, which required a whole new way of assembling aircraft. All right? And they were quite successful in it. Even though it has this size, it is much lighter than a similar aircraft made out of metal would be, allowing the airlines to convert that savings into better, transit, less fuel burn, stuff like that. They also were trying to think about the passenger's comfort, and as you walk through this area here, I'd like for you to go up around the nose and meet me on this side. We'll go through the rest of the aircraft. Basically, they used it as a test bed, prototype, things like that. But the most important thing this aircraft did for the Boeing company, Boeing used this aircraft on a worldwide sales tour that launched the 787 series. All right, so if you would, just follow the aisle up towards the nose. You can take a quick look in the cockpit and then keep coming down this aisle and we'll head on out the back. And as we're heading out, take a look around, see what it looked like, and say, how come my aircraft doesn't have new seats? Padding once again, comfort. But anyhow, please advance.
Have you taken him through the other three so far?
Excuse me?
Have you taken him through the other three so far?
No. I didn't try to contour it because of the limited size and 707 that way. I did put one in 47. Okay, yeah, because of size. Thank you.
Yeah.
They've done the same thing in the passport.
Somebody come in and have something to sit down. You can cut the seats up.
Who knows? I know people just.
That's this issue.
No, this is something else. Maybe if we crew rest or something.
Yeah, here we go.
These things look the same.
The windows are much taller and taller, but they're not as wide. No. But they have the controllable thing.
I missing the leader? Right. We're going to head over this way and look at 727.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
I remember doing the O'Hare one, and I remember doing the O'Hare tour, and they took us to United when they had a green line open. They told me that the landing gear doors, only took 2 people to lift it in terms of the landing gear. It was really that light.
The landing gear doors?
Mhm. Just 2 people. Just 2 people to lift it because it was so light.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to turn my back to you for a moment. I want to point out something very interesting. These here are slats. Most aircraft prior to this one did not have those. Why does this aircraft have slats and Fowler flaps in the back? Because this is the same generation of a 707, that time frame, early 60s, things like that. Well, guess what? The 707 could operate from places with long runways. But the airlines realized they wanted to have jet aircraft going into regional airports with shorter runways. And the way to get that is they had to redefine the wing configuration. Literally. Why? Because in normal flight, those slats would be retracted and you'd have a solid wing tip, leading edge. But the wing itself is raked back and it doesn't provide that much lift at lower speeds for landing, right? So the engineers figured out with their slide rules at that time, I'm sure, that slats would increase the wing area. The Fowler flaps on the back would also increase the wing area, giving it more lift at lower air speeds, allowing this aircraft to be able to go into those smaller regional airline airports. And so that's what made this aircraft important. They didn't need the range of the 707. They wanted to get to the people in those smaller airports. Now, the reason why I like this aircraft is because, guess what? It is the first 727, but because of it, this is also the first jet aircraft type that I flew on. And I grew up in Boston, and anybody old enough to remember Northeast Airlines with the yellow tails, that was very impressive, seeing them go in and out of Logan International. But that is my first exposure to the 727 that was meant to bring aviation, jet aviation, to more people in the smaller airports. Now, it has what's called a tri-jet, and we're going to go to the rear and we're going to talk about that. Okay. This coming from this side, I'm going to point out why this is a tri-jet. All right? You've got one jet intake up here, and S2 that feeds the compressor, and the jet exhaust comes out the tailpipe there. You have another engine here mounted on the side. And trust me, for now, there's another engine mounted on the upper, hence tri-jet, 3 jet engines, right? something that we can talk about that's near and dear to anybody in the Pacific Northwest. November '71, one of these aircraft flying for Northwest Airlines took off out of Portland, Oregon, flying towards Seattle. En route from Portland to Seattle, a passenger got the attention of a flight attendant, passed her a note saying, "Hey, I got a bomb." Now, in order to reinforce that, he opened up a satchel that was beside him, and there she saw what she thought were the components of a bomb. That individual eventually became known as D.B. Cooper. So what happened? The flight attendant told the pilot, they notified Seattle, we got a problem, and they also forwarded the request of D.B. Cooper. I want so much money and 4 parachutes. So once they got the SeaTac, they got the money, they got the parachutes, and D.B. Cooper let everybody else off except the flight crew, which at that time would be pilot, first officer, and the flight engineer. Everybody else in the cabin was gone except him. So what happened? Cooper said take off and head south. Well, but he also said, I don't want the landing gear up, I want you to maintain a certain speed, and I'll get back to you. Well, he never did. Why? Because when they were flying south, somewhere he left the aircraft, because this type of aircraft has an air stair right there. That air stair can come down in flight at that time, and then Cooper left whenever he chose to leave, and nobody knew. All right? So whatever happened to D.B. Cooper, nobody really knows. They have found part of the money down around the Columbia River. They have found parachute harness material in a similar location, but they never found the bulk of the money nor the missing person himself. And the only thing that came out of that, besides the missing money, is, if you can take a look, right here. This is called the Cooper vein. And what that means is, you see this flap? When the aircraft is at flying speed, it moves back and locks the air stair. So that would prevent future hijackings. Or not hijacking, escapes. Okay?
Maybe an alien file dump they'll release about it.
So anyhow, there's a lot of things about aircraft here and there, and you can find stories, unusual stories, just about any place you go. So, I really don't want to go through the 707 or the Supersonic Concorde unless you want to, because that's going to cut into your time. I suggest you come back on your own. So we're going to head back across the street, if you don't mind, and we'll finish up there. Follow me?
Stop stepping on my shoe.
There's one in the Reagan Library.
Oh, there's the one.
those technology at the time, we had a lot of mechanical extension jack screws and things like that.
Always keeping it adjusted.
Keeping them in adjustment. Hello, Jack. Before you go, the gentleman seated in the seat is our own hero. A hero from World War II. This is Captain Dick Nelms. He still volunteers here at the Museum of Flight. After the tour, you can come back and talk to him. But he's 103 and a half years old, and he still comes out to speak with folks like you. But after the tour, okay? So let's go.
They're still on it for.
And the reason why he comes is he's a B-17 pilot that survived 35 missions.
Whoa!
And we'll head back to your left.
Yeah, and I'm not driving further.
This aircraft behind me.
That one is a very
Okay, this aircraft is probably the first Boeing passenger carrying aircraft. This is a Boeing 40A or 40B, and basically this aircraft initially was started to fly airmail, and that is why it has this acronym here, Contract Air Mail Route 18, Chicago to San Francisco. All right. Now, this mannequin out here is why this aircraft became the first paying customer aircraft. Why? Because in Chicago, there was a paper that had a reporter by the name of Jane Eads, 26 years old. And they said, we want you to take this flight and report about it from Chicago to San Francisco. So where did she sit? There. It's not the convenience you have today, but it was the start. She was the only passenger, and one of her stories was somewhere over in the Southwest desert, she got so hot in that air-conditioned compartment that she changed from her two-piece Chicago suit into an outfit that was of lesser material. However, it was presentable once she got out the aircraft, but in order to change from one outfit to the other, there's a lot of bumping and jostling around in there, causing the pilot here to wonder what was going on with his aircraft. All right, so the first flight with paying passengers was, how should I say, not uneventful because of that. But basically, it was a 23-hour flight It had 12 stops, and at each stop she would file a report to her newspaper. So, you're probably wondering, how did the flight end? Well, it ended safely in San Francisco, and when offered to fly back, this gallant reporter said, "No, I'll take the train." Any questions? So, we're going to go to the next aircraft.
If I'm gonna take a picture, I'm gonna take it in front of the SR-71. That's the world's fastest plane.
What we're going to do is talk about two aircraft that you can see from this position.
I am not taking
The
the
first
picture
one
wherever
is
you
the
want.
next step up from the P-40, and that is the Boeing P-80 right here. Now, first P-80 was a model, and the major differences were between the and this was the first Boeing aircraft that had stewardess. And that first stewardess was named Ellen Church. Now, Ellen Church, she was a private pilot herself. And she realized she wasn't going to be able to fly for the airline what she wanted to fly. And so, that was the first Boeing that she was flying out. And they rotated on the and the main thing about the we had two pilots on site of it, and a factory factory on the back, and then we had and there was some other movement things that the flight attendants had to do that. So we also had aviation tools and type of sequence, seats of the aircraft. But a lot of the flight attendants did not. Why? Because they were not on the earth. And the reason for that, they found out which husband married. That's true. All right? Now, the reason why this aircraft looks the way it does is because they wanted to have a greater range, higher speed, things like that. But if you remember the 247 Delta we talked about out in the Aviation Pavilion, this aircraft caused that aircraft to be developed. Because in the early 1930s, there was an accident that took the life of the famous football coach Lew Brockney from Notre Dame in a plane crash. It was a Fokker trimotor, and this aircraft and all aircraft prior to that time, they were put together with glue and wood, and the stresses of flying more weight caused some of the adhesive to separate, allowing moisture to get in, and then in flight you had catastrophic separation. And the death of Lew Brockney caused the aviation industry to start researching the 240B and the DC-2 all-metal aircraft in order to provide a safer vehicle. This aircraft, in training also at Seat. And the FAA, after the Newt Rockby investigation, said, hey, we can't have that anymore. And that's when the industry was forced, for safety reasons, to go to metal. Now, moving on from here, remember the BCQ. See the fan movers on. But this aircraft, rest up from delivery to Alaska. Alaska Aviation Channel, how should I say, screw this aircraft up. That being said, it's over. However, if you get on the right side of this aircraft, you will see that back to the road on the right side.